What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today I want to do a bit of a physical review of the PS5 console and just talk about some of the things that I like and some of the things that bug me about the PS5 console. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about positively about the PS5 console is that it is much quieter. The volume level of the PS5 in comparison to its predecessors is a lot lower. It's a lot more discreet. You notice it a lot less because it does what it does at a much quieter level. And that's one of the things that you will immediately notice about the differences between the PS5, and I have the PS4 Pro here. So even with the upgraded version of the PS4, with the PS4 Pro there, it makes a lot more noise than the PS5 does, and that's one of the greatest advantages of the PS5. Now, the next point that I want to talk about with the PS5 in comparison to the current gen consoles is the obvious lack of space that you can have by having the PS5 set up either vertically or horizontally. So with the PS4, you're naturally going to be able to sit it horizontally, the PS4 Pro especially here. Really slim design, lets me sit stuff on top of it no problem, but you're not going to get that with the PS5, and I find that to be a bit of an issue. Now, I don't mind the design of the PS5, you know, how it's sleek, it's pretty cool looking, but the problem with it is, no matter which way you sit it, on its side or vertically, you're never going to be able to sit things flat on top of that PS5, and that becomes an issue with space. You know, right here, it takes up basically all of the space to the side of my TV, and there's no other choice around it. I don't have the options to sit stuff on it or near it the same way that I did here with the PS4 Pro. The next point that I want to talk about is I want to talk about the way that the disc version of the console actually takes in and spits out the disc. Now, it's really not all that intuitive. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and here's why. So if you have the console vertically, which is what most people are probably going to do, they're probably going to have the console vertical like this. Whenever you go to input or take out a disc, the disc comes out the incorrect direction, and this makes it complicated to actually be able to get your hand in on the correct side of the disc. So it basically makes it so that you have to grab the part of the disc that you don't want to touch. I can't really get my hand in easily behind here because of the lack of space in order to grab the center of the disc and take it out. It also makes it more difficult to put the disc in. So that creates an issue in terms of the ergonomics of it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences in the PS5 controller versus the PS4 controller, because this is actually my biggest issue with the entire design of the PS5 and the controller. As you guys will see on the screen here, there's quite a difference between a PS5 controller and a PS4 controller. Now, the PS5 controller went with more of the bulky look, what I would consider to be the Xbox look. I don't mind that about the controller at all. That's not a problem for me. But what is a problem for me is you guys will see on this controller that the base of a PS4 controller is completely rounded. And so what ends up happening when I hold a PS4 controller, you guys can see here, my pinky ends up lining up somewhere on the base of this controller, and that's fine because it's rounded. But the issue comes in whenever I have to do this with the PS5 controller. There's an edge there, a pretty sharp edge that'll end up digging into your fingers if you're not careful, and it was something that was super uncomfortable for me whenever I first started on the PS5. With that being said, I have adjusted to hold the PS5 controller differently. However, if you're a person like me that has big hands, you might be tempted to hold the controller with your pinky on this edge down here, and that really is uncomfortable. And I don't know why they decided to design the controller that way. Maybe they didn't think people have hands big enough to grip a controller all the way down there, but for me, that was one of the biggest issues with it, and it was causing pain in my pinky finger every single time I played the console for the first month or so. Now that I've decided to or adapted to be able to hold the controller differently, it's not quite as much of an issue, and it's actually quite weird going from a PS5 controller back to playing on a PS4 controller. However, it's an issue for me. It's something that doesn't make sense in the design. I see no reason why they had to make that flat at the bottom there with a sharp edge. I see no reason why they couldn't have just simply rounded it the way they've done with previous controllers. I do want to take a moment to speak to what I would consider to be one of the positives of the console, the PS5 itself, is the ease with which there is to set it up. You don't have to take a lot of effort to put the base on the bottom of the console. Honestly, this whole thing sets up within a matter of a moment or two. It's super easy to get it on there, super easy to take it apart. I've had no issues with the setup. I've had no issues with it sitting the way it is. Haven't had any problems with it falling over or being not sturdy. It's a really good design in terms of, you know, being able to stand on that given stand and not really having any type of issue and not having to take a lot of time to get it put together. It's very easy, very quick, and painless. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about here in regards to the console is the weight of the console. The PS4 Pro supposedly weighs in at around 7 pounds, maybe 7.5 pounds, 7.25, somewhere in that range. However, the PS5 is said to weigh in at about 8.5 pounds. The problem that I have with that is that doesn't seem quite right. One of the things that you'll first notice whenever you take out your PS5 and begin to set it up is how much heavier this is than even a PS4 Pro. And the PS4 Pro is the heavier version of the PS4. However, the PS5 is much, much heavier. It's much more noticeable. And that could create problems for a variety of reasons. We don't have to get into that today, but it is something that I think is worth noting in terms of how heavy the console actually is and how much more of a pain it could be to move it around or take it with you if you're trying to go somewhere with it. Other than that, the equipment here with the PS5 is pretty standard and pretty similar to the current gen in terms of the number of USB ports you have, the ports on the back, being able to plug things in. There's not too much of an advantage to the PS5. I believe it does have at least one extra USB port, and that's nice to have, so I can't complain about that. But that's my physical review for the PS5, and just the couple of notes that I wanted to talk about, the couple of things that I wanted to get off my chest in regards to the PS5 that I thought were worth noting for those of you out there considering getting a PS5. From a standpoint of gameplay and everything like that, I could do a whole nother review. I think the PS5 is worth it if you have the money for it, but I don't think people should be pushing to get it right away because there's not a lot to play on it. And to be honest with you, the advantages of having it really aren't there yet. And to be quite honest with you, physically speaking, it's going to take up a lot of room and not be quite as, what's the word I want to use, ergonomic as I thought it should be. And with all that being said, I just want to say, please forgive my poor cable management system here. I'm getting the basement back together, and by the time I do my setup video, this is all going to be taken care of, hopefully, and out of the way, and a little bit more appealing to the eye. If you guys like this video, if you want to see more of this type of stuff, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button, and comment down below with what you guys think. If you have a PS5, let me know. What do you guys think of it? What do you think of it physically? I would really be interested to see what people think about the controller, and if anybody else has had a similar issue to me with the grip of the controller, because that's something that was, you know, pretty annoying for me whenever I first got it and really kind of honestly ruined the excitement of the PS5 right off the bat, because gripping that controller made my hand hurt. So leave that feedback on the video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you guys have a good night.